Who I believe to be the true birthers of choosing beggars, it's entitled parents. Our first one is from OK Return 170. So this all happened some time ago, but someone brought this story back from my memory and I decided to write it here. I live in a Latino country and the houses here are normally stuck together, and most of the houses also have a small patio, so my neighbor can just look over their wall and see my patio. Of course, normal people won't look at your house even if it is possible. This kid, let's call him entitled son, is one of my neighbor's kids. This family always lived at the side of my house and they're a big family. The mother has 7 kids and they're all little brats. Everyone in the neighborhood complains about them. They like to run in the street and randomly play on the doorbells of other people's houses. My mom even turned off the doorbell of my house because of this. Now when someone visits us, they have to scream, but at least this stopped the demon spawns. They also play hide and seek during the night at the street without supervision, and this is killing one of my neighbors with concern. She's an elderly old woman and stays awake more than necessary to watch these women's kids. Everyone complained with her, and she never restrains her kids, saying things like,
"This is just how kids are sometimes. They need to have some good childhood memories. Don't worry about what kids do. They are going to grow up sometime."
I'm a teenager and my mom used to say to her how I and my sister were never this bad when we were kids, but this just made her angry. She said to my mom once,
"Easy to say that when you have just 3 kids. If I had only 3, I would also have more behaved children."
My mom replied to her with, "So you should have less children." And since then, the woman has been having a kind of fight with my family. After the fight, the kids have been even more vicious. She let them play at our sidewalk. My father almost ran over one of her kids with a car because they were playing at the entrance of the garage. One of them used crayons to draw on our wall when my younger sister is in the balcony and they start calling her names and things like ugly cowface and run back to your mommy you boring bitch. And this left her very embarrassed. My mom stopped complaining after she realized that the woman was the one allowing her kids' behavior. This all summed up to when her family was making a renovation at their house. There was a lot of cement and construction materials at her house, in particular a ladder. They were using the ladder to renovate the roofs. Most of the renovation in houses in my country are made by people who live there, so it didn't have any construction worker or something like that. The entitled son, this little brat demon spawn son of a old bitch, decided that it would be funny to use the ladder to climb the wall that separated our houses, and in his now privileged position, start to throw cement at my dogs. My dogs are old. One of them is 7 and the other is 15. They are old and love to stay in the patio, mainly on hot days. My oldest dog is also blind and he was very scared when that kid started to throw cement at him. My older sister is very protective of our dogs, most than anyone in the house. Our oldest was given to her as a present when she was just a little girl. She loved that dog, and when she saw the kid doing that, she rushed to the patio and started shouting at him. The kid, being such a little shit, didn't hear her and threw cement again. Now angry, my sister, that is tall and was almost in the wall size, just grabbed the kid's hand and said to him, "Throw that again and I'm gonna throw it back at you." And in that moment, he started to cry. His mom came running and immediately started shouting at my sister, saying,
"You're a young adult, abusing a 10 years old."
She was 19, and
"I'm gonna call the police on you."
And was then that all the family heard and was there, in the moment. I just knew summed up info. The asshole was throwing things at my dog and also started to shout at her. The woman wanted to bring this to a real fight. She, my mom, and my older sister walked out to the street just to scream at the face of each other. My mom, after some time hearing my sister and the woman, said, "Control your kid better. He was throwing dangerous things at my dogs." And the woman said,
"Control your daughter. She hurt my son."
And then she tried to threaten us with calling the police. My father, that was inside with my younger sister, came out and says to the woman in a very calm voice, he is a lawyer and is used to stressing discussions, It is a crime to climb at others' houses. It is also a crime to hurt dogs or cats that have owners. I will gladly take you to court if you continue with this shit. His words made her shut up. She then looked angrily at all my family, take her son, that was still crying, and returned back home. She hasn't spoken with us since, thank God, and all the neighborhood heard of what happened and started to treat her more coldly. Almost all my neighbors have dogs, and she always complained about,
"They're dangerous animals, I don't want my kids near them,"
and stayed on our side, what was good since this calmed her down. My mom still hates her and always gives her the look when they cross paths. Just heard my aunt mention this story at a family party and decided to tell you guys. This entitled mother really looked like someone who deserves a post on this sub. I love how she tries to tell your mom to control her kids when it's not you guys that are causing the problems. It's in fact entitled parent's son and her entitled son that's causing all the issues because of her lack of parenting. This next one is by Gecko. Background: in the 7th grade, my brother and I, bus failed to pick us up multiple times and my dad couldn't take us because he had work early in the morning. Luckily, we had a friend in the neighborhood whose mom could drive us as her son, who has autism, went to the same school as us. He is an awesome kid and our closest friend. Story: we had to get rides from our friend's mom a lot. It was almost weekly and we always had a ride to school in the morning. The way our school was set up was the special education classes had a door towards the bus entrance of the school where public transportation, vans, and parents can drop off kids in that class. This gave us a bypass to skip the carpool lane and get to class before it started. One day, Karen complained to the sheriff deputy that we, my brother and I, were not in the classes that my friend was in and should have to leave and go through the carpool line after dropping off her son. The deputy shut her down and said they will not make us go through the carpool line because it would not make sense and would make us late to class. That dude was a legend every time we saw him. One of the few good memories. I like how the Karen clearly just showed how her common sense is not so common and that she lacks any form of sense, because honestly, what kind of sense does that make? If you're getting dropped off, why should you have to go wait in line to drop 2 other kids off? Logic of a Karen. This next one is from Too Many Kids LOL. My husband passed away unexpectedly last month. It's honestly the worst thing I've ever had to go through. Now I'm a single mom to children aged between 2 and 20. 2 days after my husband passed, she came by but brought her 3 dogs with her, knowing that one of her dogs isn't friendly with children and knowing I also have animals. We had my husband's memorial at a local park where we had been married. I struggled to hold it together, and besides brief hellos, I only spoke to those helping set up, and then I gave my speech. I approached my entitled mother when I saw she had arrived, said hi and let her know my brother, who's no contact with her, was there. Later I noticed she was gone without even saying goodbye. A few days later, my 20-year-old, he's my stepson who entitled mom has never paid any attention to before, gets a message from her asking him to come stay the week to paint her house. I spoke to Mr. 20 and my other children's therapist who all agree it's too soon after losing their father for their brother who lives with us to be gone for a week. A few of my younger children are autistic. Later that night, I called entitled mom to chat about it and she says,
"It's been 3 weeks. You need to get over it."
With that, I saw red. I let loose and tell her I'll never be over it. I then threw at her that I noticed she couldn't be bothered to say goodbye at the memorial, to which she then had a go at me for having my brother there, as it made her uncomfortable. I reminded her that the day wasn't about her. I let loose on a lot that phone call. In the end, I hung up the phone. The next morning, I got a call from the police saying that entitled mom had called them and told them that I was trying to end my life. I was lucky as I had spoken to the same officer only 2 days prior, and she told me she got the impression that I'd reach out for help if I needed it, which is why she chose to call instead of a home visit. Which, given my past history, which entitled mom knows about, they would have taken me to the hospital as a precaution. I've now gone no contact with entitled mom. I fully believe knowing her that she only invited my son over as she knows he has been one of my biggest supporters as retaliation for not giving her enough attention at the memorial. After I went no contact, I found out that she told my other stepson that she only came because it would have looked bad on her if she didn't. Others also told me she kept yelling at my brother and complaining that I wasn't leaning on her for support. I'm so glad I've gone no contact. I just don't understand parents like that try to make everything about them. It's not. The world doesn't revolve around them, because if it did, you'd think the planet would be called Entitled Parent. And our final one is by Sassy Dashing. Of course, this was at the mecca of entitled parents, Disneyland. I was grabbing dinner at a cafeteria-style restaurant where you give food on your tray, pay, then find a table. It was colder that night, and I was thankfully able to find a table inside. This was a large 8-person table. A couple was sitting at one end, and I asked if I could sit at the other end. I was alone, which they were cool with. They were already eating dessert, so left soon, but I was eating my meal. While I'm mid-bite, an entitled mom comes over and asks for my table. I said she and her family, 5 people total, were welcome to sit there too, but she wanted the whole thing. She tried motioning to another smaller table which had opened up, but it was across the room and would have been a pain to get all my food and stuff there, plus I was literally eating. So I politely declined. She ended up sitting at the end of my table and stared daggers at me. Most annoying was that she had gone ahead of her family to get a table while the rest were getting their food and paying, with a long wait there. So by the time they got to their table to eat, I was done and packing up. So she got the table to herself and just didn't need to be a bee about it. Unfortunately, most Karens will always be the bee. That is their most famous card to play, the B card, because, you know, if that doesn't work, then they'll play the M card. And we all know, the managers really don't do shit. Way to stand your ground. Alright, that's enough entitlement for the day. Well, that wraps up this episode of Entitled Parents. If you liked the video, please drop a like, share my content on all of your social media, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to hit that bell so you're notified every time I upload, and drop a comment down below. It really helps with the algorithm and helps new people find my channel. Thanks for watching, thanks to my patrons, have a great day and stay safe out there.